The views on Parents Anonymous podcast are 100% ours, crafted with love, chaos, and whatever was left of our sanity after bedtime.
Welcome to Parents Anonymous podcast. I'm Tal.
Hi, I'm Rupali, and we're parents of a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old.
And welcome to today's episode. Today's episode is dedicated to all our dads out there. Yes, all our fathers. This is Father's Day weekend. And today we're going to look at my point of view when it came to both of our pregnancies and just dedicate this to all the hardworking dads out there supporting their partners and helping raise their children. So, yeah, let's get into it.
Let's do it.
I want to start off with just talking about the moment that we found out you were pregnant with our daughter, our first child. And it was very nerve-wracking for me because, again, we've talked about this in other episodes. I don't have a medical background of any sorts. There's no class taught about raising children, so I was very nervous from the get-go. But at the same time, I felt a little bit confident knowing that you were in my corner because you're just a wealth of knowledge. You just, you have those instincts in you, and that's what drew me to you when we first met. And I love you for that. I just want to say that. And that being said, it did give me a little bit more encouragement that we got this. We're going to figure it out. We're thankful for very good family support from your side and my side, my mom and your parents. Like it's phenomenal, and our siblings as well who are there for us. So yeah, like right when we got that, it was nervousness, but at the same time, I felt a lot of excitement when we looked at that test, and I just thought, and I was like, wow, I'm gonna be a dad. So yeah, like going from that point, we moved into what's next? What do we need to do? And I'm like, am I supposed to read something?
Yeah.
And that's where you kind of came in.
Yeah, I did. And I think initially you were excited, but as you said, you had put a lot of pressure on yourself because you wanted to do a good job. You wanted to be a good dad. And you kind of went into this mode of like, okay, I need to like research every single thing that I can during the pregnancy up until the baby's here. And I remember you ordered a couple of books that you wanted to read, and Tal would read those books before bed. And they were the what to expect. I think it was during the first year of a baby's life. So he went through all the different chapters. He would read sometimes, I would read, but he did go into a phase of just wanting to absorb as much information as possible before our daughter was born.
Yeah, that's the type of person I am. If I want to do something, be it work wise or take on a different, like something different that we're doing, like this podcast is something new. Technology and how do I do it? I start researching, and that's my instinct as a kid is to start looking up the whys and the hows and the whos. So having those resources did make me feel a lot better. But at the same time, in this scenario with having kids, I knew that you were there as a partner. So it wasn't all on me, and knowing that it helped a lot. So reading those books was a great resource for me, like you said, and some of those books are like What to Expect is a series written by a lady named Heidi. So she was great, and they have a corresponding app. So
Yeah.
being the technological person I am, having an app, and every week of the pregnancy, it would explain, this is what to expect in week 1 or week 2, etc. So having that, both those resources really help. And I think if you're a dad out there and your wife is currently pregnant or your partner's pregnant, it's normal to be feeling nervous. If you're feeling nervous right now, it's okay. All of us have been there. I'm still nervous sometimes, even with a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. I'm like, how am I doing this? Right. So I just stick to it. Look up if you're someone like me that loves to have those resources, what to expect, right? We'll put a link for that as well on our Instagram page. So you can grab that book, download that free app, great resource. And then not only that though, I think as a father or partner, husband, you want to support your pregnant wife. And there's a lot of burden, I believe, on your shoulders, or a lot of like, I need to support because your partner's already got to deal with all the ins and outs of pregnancy, right? And we've talked about what pregnancy was like for us,
Mhm.
all the way to birth. And you know, unfortunately, we can't carry children, right? Just that's how the science works,
Programmed.
and
Yeah.
yeah, that's how we're programmed, and that's how our anatomy is. So how do I support my wife who is feeling all these symptoms? Her body is growing this human child inside of her. That made me very overwhelmed, and I had that throughout. I would say the first trimester of our first pregnancy, where I felt like I how do I step up? How do I come and be that support system for her? What can I do? And when we talked about it, I'm the builder, so building furniture and getting stuff ready, especially for a mom that's going to be nesting, having that support there for her, you know, n- being knowledgeable for myself. And if she's going through some symptoms, just as an example of nausea, and not saying Rapali went through the nausea in the first one, but you could look up what are some healthy teas that help, like ginger and stuff like that, just as an example. Those are some ways that I found that I could step up.
Yeah, and I did think you did that, and Tal, being the kind of person he is, he's very much the one who wants to do whatever it is that needs to be done, whether it's, like you said, at an event or for around the house. Because you're that doer in this situation when it came to our pregnancies, you didn't have that. It was kind of taken from you because it's not your, like you said, it's not your job to grow that baby. So you have to switch and think about what is the best way I can be supportive. What is it a way that it's going to be helpful to the mom? So that's I could think what you did. You had to kind of shift and be like, how can I be the best support person there can be? That's kind of the shift that you have to take, and it has to be very intentional. And of course, with I think our generation now, things have shifted a little bit. Before, it used to be that the women carry the children and raise the children. The dads really didn't have an active role at all in raising children.
Hmm.
And even from before in the pregnancy phases, it was, the dad would go work and usually the mom would be home or, and we know, raising multiple children. That's kind of how society was. But
Yeah.
now, as we've changed with technology, with our generation, and we're so used to not having that because now women want to work.
Yeah.
Women want to contribute to a household. So many things have shifted. And I'm not saying there's still families that are like that where women stay home or whatever, or sometimes it's the dad, but in most cases, in the typical cases now, women work. They want to contribute to the household. They want to have their own career and raise babies. So then how can now it naturally shifts the dad, right? The dad now, yes, they still work, but how do they now balance that? That at home, it's not just the woman or the mom raising the child.
Hmm.
It's all of us doing things together, both of us
Yeah.
doing things together.
No, exactly. It's a two-person team at the end of the day. And yeah, there's a major culture shift now. Back in the day, especially in our culture, in the Indian culture, women would stay home or they would go over to their parents' house.
Yeah.
They lived in a different village or a different city, and they would go live there with the mother's mom, right? Like the pregnant mom's mother. And then the dad would be busy working in their farm or whatever business they had. Nowadays, in our case, especially our daughter as well, you work throughout the pregnancy up until the day it was your last day when our daughter was born, as most of you know if you've listened to our other episodes. So, having you being at work in the first, I would say 2 trimesters, it was great because I knew that you love your work, you love your job, and if anyone knows Rapali, like she's passionate about what she does for work. So even her coworkers and colleagues. So I knew that that was good for your mental well-being, your health, because you're an active person. So having that was great. It was just that when we got into the last trimester, naturally you're like, "Oh man, I'm worried. I'm not there. I don't see you. Is she okay? Is she feeling tired?" Like all those other symptoms by the third trimester. Because as for the mom, her body's getting ready to deliver. So do regular check-ins via text message or WhatsApp, and just stay in the loop. And you were great for communicating how you're feeling. So if you're a mom or partner listening to this podcast, and if I were to say, is there something that you could simply do to help the your partner, the father, dad, in this pregnancy phase? Is please just be open about your communication. Let your partner know like how you're feeling, and for our side, the father side or the partner side, take that, listen to it, and what I've learned in our relationship, and you really have to work hard to for me to understand and learn and go forward with this skill is just to listen sometimes and acknowledge that you're feeling a certain way. It could be mentally, it could be physically, but I don't have to always be a problem solver.
Yeah.
And for me, who is naturally a problem solver, like if you come to me and say, "Hey, Tal, I have this issue," naturally, I'm gonna go to try to fix your problem.
Yeah, even if that's not what's asked,
Yeah.
right? If someone's just sharing their problem. Yeah.
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 So if both those open communications happen and it's a two-way street, I think naturally you're going to have a stronger relationship during that pregnancy. Because if you're the mom and you're not keeping it, if you're keeping it in and not communicating that you're feeling a certain way, again, mentally or physically, and the dad is assuming or feels like she's not communicating with me, then there's that disconnect in that communication. And I know from like experience, I eventually we communicated what we wanted and really improved on that. But I feel like you feel lonely, right, in that situation. And so does the partner. Both of you feel lonely. But if you just open that bridge of communication, I feel like it strengthens that bond. That feeling of loneliness goes away, and then the overall, like, I know that again, I don't have to fix her problems. I can listen, and if she says, "Hey, I'm just really can't figure this nausea situation out," just as an example, you can ask, "Hey,
Mhm.
is there anything that I can do to like help with that?" And she
Yeah.
might go, "Yeah, can you look up some remedies? Because I'm just not feeling good. I'm gonna lay
Yeah.
down."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That communication is really important. And I think it's from both sides. So for dads, just, dads can't read your mind, moms. So share and vice versa, right? So if just knowing that, and as a mom, you don't know what that feels like to be kind of on the sideline and just be that supportive person because all the focus is on the mom in the pregnancy. So it's just remembering that, that your partner's in this picture too. How do you ensure that you're checking in with your partner as well, or you're communicating clearly that, hey, I'm feeling this way or that way, and I need whatever it is that you need in that
Mhm.
moment. Just being clear that I actually want advice, or can you look up this thing, or I already know how to change this, but I just want someone to listen and just
Yeah.
be around, and that goes a long way during pregnancy, and then obviously afterwards as well, is when you have children, then you kind of communicate and talk together. And at the end of the day, when it comes to dads, just know that you and dad are in this together, moms, right? Like you're a team. You're not The ultimate goal here is to keep your baby safe and be the best parent that you can be. And the best way you're going to do that is together. Sometimes we all make mistakes when you're tired, when you're cranky, when you're sleep deprived, whatever it is, or even when you don't mean to. Just know that the intention for both of you is to do the best you can in raising that child.
Yeah.
And as long as you remember that and you come back to that, it's going to be okay.
No, that's really well said. And to that as well, we were very fortunate our jobs wise that I didn't work far away. I was very close to our your work. I was able to stay in constant communication, and we saw each other every day. Having that there, I think, was very important for us. Now, you guys might go, "Hey, Tal or Polly, like my spouse partner goes away for work, or there's a lot of travel involved. Like, how do I manage that?" And I think the big thing is, again, with technology in our fingertips, in our generation, we got video calling. Like, make those calls, make those efforts. Like, you might not want to be on camera with each other, or like one's not feeling well. Pick up that phone and call.
Yeah.
Send a text message. Send a WhatsApp message. uh, Send a Snapchat. Like, I just stay in that communication, and yeah, at times I'll feel lonely because as human beings, naturally we want that companionship and we want that face to face. And I know through COVID, it got hard for a lot of people. So if you're struggling with that, let your partner know, reach out. Maybe if you're friends that are listening to this podcast,
Yeah.
be there for those people. If you know your friend's spouse is gone away on work and your friend is pregnant, then just, check in, be there
Check
as
in.
well.
Yeah, check in actively, and I think it's different to ask, "Hey, how are you?" And it's one thing to do that, but really being intentional. If you can meet in person, like, just check in because I think when there's no one else pregnant around you, it feels very lonely because 'cause you're the only one that's experiencing this. Yes, there's other people in your circle or in your family that may have experienced it before, but in that moment, usually it's the case, right?
Yeah.
There's only one of you that's pregnant and no one else, and in your mind, when it's you, it's all you're thinking about constantly. Making sure you're eating well, making sure you're drinking well, making sure your weight is going up, making sure you're also active. Like there's so many things that are
Yeah.
going in your head constantly. So if you have that support person, that's really important.
Yeah. And a big shout out to all our friends who were there for us, and you folks know who you are. So thank you so much. We're so grateful for it to this day. And you still all continue to check in with us as parents, and sometimes we have sick children or we're sick, and thank you all so much for that. But during that time, having that support is very important. And there's been studies done on folks that are dealing with serious ailments like cancer, other like cardiovascular. Those people that had a great support system with them, face to faces or regular contact via phone, social media, had a greater chance of success from recovery with those ailments
Yeah.
than those folks that had no support system.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you know someone in your circle, it could be a coworker that doesn't have a support person. If you have the bandwidth and the time, be there for those people. That's very important. And you know what? Like going back to being a new father and having that support, and sometimes I didn't want to bother Rupali with my inner feelings because I feel like sometimes like if I'm feeling this way, she's probably feeling this way. I don't wanna bring her down any more than, she might be feeling. So then I would check in with one of our friends, she's just amazing, and we would talk regularly, and she would encourage me and said, "Got this." She'd always ask me if, we need anything, if we need any support, she can come over, and, for the most part, we were good in that part, but just talking to her, having that person in our life really helped me and make me feel more encouraged and, that I could support Rapali in the way that she needs. Yeah.
There is two things that I want to talk about as in this episode and get your thoughts and perspective on. One of them is if you want to share with the viewers and the listeners about what kind of role modeling did you have for a father? If you want to share that, because I think that you bring a lot of that and that shapes who you are as a father, as a parent. So, Tal's situation is a little bit unique. So, and I'll let him share that a little bit because it is important. And I think this is what shifted and changed him in the way that he showed up as a dad after our daughter was born.
Yeah, so I already get emotional.
That's okay.
Uh, it's hard because it is Father's Day weekend, and my
Yeah.
dad is no longer here. But I had an amazing role model when it came to having a father that was always there. So I have another sibling. He's younger than me, like by 2 years. So I was the older sibling, and when I was born, my dad was about 54 years old. So at 54, he had his son, me, and then 56 when he had my brother. So growing up, um, what my dad ended up getting injured at work and essentially was getting close to retirement. So he, by the time I think I was 2 years old, he wasn't working anymore. My mom was working, and he was always there for us. Like,
And he essentially helped raise Tal and his brother. So again, it's not the common situation when you think of, right? Usually, as we talked about earlier, in our culture, the mom is the one that's raising the children, and Tal had it the opposite actually, where Tal's dad helped raise him and his brother, and Tal's mom was actually the one that was working.
yeah, my mom had to work two jobs. as we were growing up, and she worked really hard, and then my dad worked really hard with like raising us. And I'm thankful that me and my brother had great role models right from the get-go. So I would consider us well-behaved children. We didn't get in trouble. We, loved each other, and family was number one. Every night we had dinner at the dinner table together. That was my dad's like rule. Um, we watched TV together every evening. He encouraged us to pursue our like second language. So for Punjabi, he was a big advocate of that. He wanted to make sure that we had a good education because my dad, again, he was born in 1936, so he grew up in the 40s and in a village where TV, radio didn't exist, and he dropped out of school when he was in grade 5, and he was the second um, oldest out of 6 kids, and living in a joint family. So there was, I think, like 11 kids and
Yeah.
four or five adults, and he was already like a father figure type to his sisters and younger brothers. So he brought that into our lives as well, and he was someone that was like a friend at the same time, but then still an authoritative. Like we still like, oh dad, like you
Afraid of him.
afraid of him. But my dad never did anything like,
Yeah.
like made us feel like, oh, we're not safe for this. Like he always made us feel safe. He made us feel like we had everything.
Yeah.
And seeing like that person grow up with that type of dad, I want to emulate that for our children.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think we talked about this in probably our very first episode. You talked about how, in the way that your dad raised you, that's what you wanted to be, and even better than that. And father figures, whether it is your actual dad or somebody that's close to like a dad, those people are so influential in our
yeah,
lives. So we always talk about moms and we talk about how much a mom nurtures and helps raise children. But having that father figure in a young child's life is so important right from the get go.
yeah,
And it shapes who we are as people. We learn so many things, and sometimes research shows that there's different traits that as children they watch and they pick up from their mom versus their dad. And I think for you guys, like having that at home and learning all those core values of what your dad was and the things that he believed in and valued, that you brought into your experience as a parent,
yeah.
as a dad.
That's exactly like, yeah, to the T. Because my my dad, again, being born in the 30s, growing up in the 40s, 50s, 60s, like that was your in those times, like it was very gender role based. Like
Yes.
the provider was a male, and the mothers were the child rearers in the family, and they stayed home and took care of the kids. But in our situation, again, for someone that was born in that era, and through those decades, my dad was doing the complete opposite. He didn't conform to the gender norms. Like my dad would cook, my dad would clean, he would, change our diapers. He again, with our situation, he was at home and he raised us in that sense. And my mom was a breadwinner, and my mom would go work 2 jobs to make sure we had food on the table. Um, they both worked really hard. So,
Yeah.
you know, if you have your dad, hug him real tight this weekend because, you know, I miss my dad a lot every day. So just,
I know wherever he is, he's looking down on both of you and he's so proud of you guys, of who you are, especially now as dads. Both of you have, Tal and his brother have both become parents, have
yeah,
become dads. So I'm sure he would be very
yeah,
proud to see that and the same values that he instilled in you, now you're
yeah,
instilling into your children. The other thing I wanted to talk about related to that is I know that culturally, as we've talked about, having these gender norms of like the mom is the one who's feeding the child, changing the child's diaper. That's what the typical is. In our situation, as we've shared with you guys before, we don't believe in any of these gender norms that have come up, especially when it comes to children. Even in the time that after our daughter was born, Tal would still get comments from family that, oh, why are you changing the diaper? Oh, the mom can do that, or whoever else can do that. That's the female. He would still get comments about that. Do you want to share that? And there was
Yeah.
a few times that
I
he
still
actually
get
got
those.
frustrated.
Yeah, I still get those comments from time to time from people, and it used to frustrate me a lot
In the
because
beginning, especially, I think when our daughter was really little, and when we were, sleep deprived and tired, Tal would actually get really frustrated and talk back a lot and
yeah,
saying, "No, this is my child. I don't care what it is that I'm doing. I don't care if it's meant to be one or the other job to do. I'm doing this."
yeah, because even though Rupali carried both of her children and worked really hard to grow them and create them, but I would tell these family members that's 50% of that DNA is mine, right? Those was it 23 chromosomes are my contribution to that formula. So I have every right and I have every obligation to provide that care and that nurturing to my children. That Rapali has the same obligation, and it's an equal obligation. Even though she, created those beings, that was her contribution. My contribution was to support her during that time and be the partner that she deserves to have and that support system. So I would tell them, and I still tell those people that make those comments, like, I don't care. Like
Yeah.
I'll change. I will cook meals for my children. I will help pack their lunch. I will change them. I will bathe them. I'll, do their laundry, fold clothes, hang clothes, do all that. And you know what? The word parent doesn't have a gender associated to it,
Yeah.
right? You are a parent. There's two of you, or it might be a village of you raising those children, but everyone plays a part in that.
Yeah, and you would always say that the only thing, especially when they were little and they were newborns, both of them are children, you would always say the only thing I cannot do is feed that baby because we were breastfeeding
Yeah,
both children. He said every single thing else related to this child, changing them, diaper, poop, he's weighing them, whatever it is, Tal would say, I can do that. The
yeah,
only thing I cannot do is feed that baby because I physically cannot feed this baby, but
yeah,
everything else I can do.
yeah. Up until that, we were able
Yeah,
to feed the breast milk via uh
bottles.
bottles and all that and formula and stuff later on. So like that, you're right. 'Cause that if you're that parent or the father or partner, you can do it. You can do all of the above except the feeding part if they're breastfeeding. So I take pride in that. And now, yes, like I said, I used to be frustrated, and now I'm very prideful, and I let those people know respectfully how I feel, and I encourage everyone to let's change those gender norms and change the way society looks at parenting. And that's why we started this podcast, was not only to work through our experiences, and there's some trauma there, which with every pregnancy or parenting there is. Sometimes my toddler's mean to me, and it hurts my feelings. So I might talk about it through this forum,
Yeah,
and I also want to share our experiences because I know there's so many people out there feeling the same way.
yeah,
Maybe your father isn't around anymore either, or or your father, like my mom's dad passed away when she was 3 and she never had a father figure.
yeah,
So like that shaped who she is as a person. Maybe that played into the gender role she played, and I put that in quotations when we were growing up, being
yeah,
the breadwinner.
yeah. I mean, we got a lot of comments because we didn't do things the typical way. We didn't like for me, I didn't take a 1 year mat leave or 18-month mat leave. And even when I went back to work after the 8-month mark or 7-month mark, I would get comments from people that, oh, who is your baby with? Like, oh, my husband took time off and he took leave, so the baby's with him. And then they would say, oh, like, you would just
Yeah,
and then people just wouldn't know what to say.
yeah,
And it's very interesting how we still feel like have that.
yeah,
And that's not specific to, I think, our culture. I think that's in general too. I would get comments. You would
yes,
get comments,
yeah,
but we just learned to figure things out for ourselves. Like eventually we've been married for a long time. So eventually you kind of morph into one person because you understand each other so well. And as long as we were both on the same page, we learned to say no to people or just kind of work through if there was any comment like that, not let it, kind of affect us, and
Yeah,
then just move on and living life and raising our children the way that we want to.
exactly. And I used to get the opposite comment. They're like, "Oh, so where's Rupali?" I'm like, "Oh, she's back to work." And it's like, "Huh? Already? It's only like how many months has it been?" I'm like, "Oh, like recently." I'm like, "Oh, he's 7 months old." "Oh, then who's watching him?" I'm like, "I'm off. I'm on parental
I'm
leave."
watching him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm watching him because again, that's how our law, our EI and everything is set up. It allows for
Yeah.
both parents to be off.
Yeah.
Again, for Rapali, as long as one of us is there, that's what mattered. That's
Yeah.
what mattered to us.
Yeah.
And if she wants to go back to work, again, that's a great happy place for her, and that makes her happy. That makes me happy, and I don't mind being home
Yeah.
with our child up
Yeah.
until I went back to
Yeah.
work.
I think for dads out there, look, you can be as present
Hmm.
and committed and involved as it makes sense for your family, but just know that the more involved and present you are, the better it's going to be for your whole family unit.
Yeah,
Obviously the babies
yeah,
but also the mom. It is very lonely when you're trying to raise that child if you're home alone, or if the mom's home with like in-laws, let's say, or other family, and you have gone to work. It's really
yeah,
challenging. And it's not the same as being there, especially in the beginning phases where life is just so delicate and your whole world is like upside down.
yeah.
It's having that both of you together, figuring and sorting things out. It's so important.
Uh, and also, like, if I look at my brother, and then if you're listening to this, like, I can say that I'm very proud of you, of the father you've become. Again, I'm getting emotional, but like, my dad was very successful in raising us, two of his sons, and the parents that we are today. And I see my brother; he is hands on as much as I'm hands on with my children.
Yeah.
So is he. He supports his wife, and just watching that,
Yeah. It's
it's
amazing. It's
amazing.
pretty cool.
Because sometimes you don't look at it in your own scenario. Like, I don't
Yeah.
look at myself and
You
go,
don't
"Oh,
realize how
Tal, you're
much
doing
you've
a great job,"
changed.
or "You're doing a
Yeah.
whatever." I watch him, and I'm also proud to say that all of you who know me and Rapali that are listening to our podcast or are listening to this, and all you fathers, again, I know a lot of fathers now. You are all doing an amazing job. I've watched you all, and I'm not gonna name names just for the
Yeah.
sake of privacy.
Yeah.
But as recently as, last week, I've seen you, all the fathers doing an amazing job feeding their children, changing their diapers, and supporting their partners, the
Yeah.
moms.
Yeah.
Some of these moms are still pumping. So, that
Yeah.
last week, you know who you are as well, you two, and you guys found a spot to go pump, and our friend, the father, he was there watching their son. So
Yeah.
I'm very proud
It's
of
it's
you.
it's really amazing. And I have to say, research, I don't know if it's recent research or not. There's obviously been a lot of research done on moms and how moms' bodies and hormones change during pregnancy and afterwards. But there's been research done on dads that when you become a dad, so not necessarily through the pregnancy, but after that baby's born, and let's say the first time you hold that baby as a dad, your hormones are shifting as well.
Hmm.
Your oxytocin is increasing
Yeah.
as dads. That love hormone is increasing. You're becoming more nurturing as a father. Your testosterone actually drops. So all these things happen in dads as well. That again, we haven't done probably nearly enough research on,
Yeah.
but there is biological changes that are happening in that dad's body. And I think for dads, of course, that like protectiveness is coming in for your child and for the mother. So all these things are also shifting and changing in dads as you see, and you hold that baby and you raise that child. It happens as well, which is really cool, and it's really important to pay attention to as well. That it's not just the mom
Yeah.
and the baby that's changed. Yes, the dad is the same, but there's internal changes when it comes to hormones that are happening in
Yeah.
that dad too.
And I think it's a great segue into like the last thing I really want to hit home and talk about. I've talked about how I felt mentally, and that was, nervousness, unsure, especially the first time around. And second time around, a little bit of that because again, you want to make sure your child and your wife is healthy, and especially when the child is born. You're trying to, hoping for no complications. So that's all there always. But I felt a lot better, and as the time went on, I felt more confident in my skills as a father, as a husband. But the other side of it is we don't talk enough about is our health as fathers, maybe as moms as well. And in another episode, we'll cover that of how Polly will share her point of view of being a healthy and active pregnant mom and how that played a big part into the birth of both of our children.
Yeah.
But health has always been in my life. Again, my dad being older, I grew up with him, having a lot of cardiovascular issues, pulmonary issues. So I was always there for his appointments and kind of navigating those. My mom, a lot more healthier. Now she's, dealing with some ailments, but still doing well. For me, I kind of lost track of my health over time because you got busy, being off and raising the children. They became the focus. And hormones play a big factor. I'm in my mid 30s now. Testosterone levels drop. Your body chemistry essentially changes
Yeah.
after being a parent. So I've now focused on myself, um, minimizing, alcohol consumption, eating healthier, being more active. And I encourage all of you dads out there, if you're struggling with the same thing, reach out, send me a message or look for literature online, whatever you need to do. But my basic thing would be incorporate some sort of active lifestyle, be it 30 minutes of walking. You and your partner can go outside, go play like sports, or do just something simple. It doesn't have to be anything big. Make those small changes because I know I want to be there for both my children for as long as I can be, if I can control my own health.
Yeah. Take care of yourself so that you can take care of your children. And for me, I always think of in the back of my head, and you do too, is how do I want my children now who are going to watch me? What do I want them to learn from me? They're not going to do what I say, they're going to do what I do. So
Yeah,
if I'm moving my body, if I'm eating well, if I'm nourishing myself, that's what you want
yeah,
as well. And I think that's just as important for dads as it is for moms.
yeah. And it's a funny story on that one is one day my daughter goes, Dada, you should eat this. And I was like, oh, okay, why? She goes, oh, it doesn't have that many calories. And she sees like Rapali and I, and especially Rapali, she's great at like tracking all her macros and stuff. And children see that and they pick
Yeah.
up on that. She has no idea what calories are.
Yeah.
But it's amazing to see that. And again, I look back at my dad emulated that. And my brother and I both are, I think, very proud parents of our children and proud husbands because our dad was an amazing partner to my mom, an amazing father. And we're hoping to keep that going and be that, awesome dad and awesome husband to our wives. So I just want to say, like, happy Father's Day to all of you dads out there and any moms that are feeling that shoe as well.
Yeah. Happy Father's Day. And that basically brings us to an end of this episode.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you guys liked our new setup and hopefully you enjoyed listening to Tal a little bit more this time around. So, on that note,
And I just want to mention shout out to Rapali's brother, my brother-in-law. He gave this. I use this pillow every single day. So this is dad's spot, and this stays over here. And Rapali's not allowed on my spot or allowed using this. So thank you for that. For those people out there, that want to support the dads this weekend, just ask how they're doing.
check in.
Check in with them. We don't need gifts. We just would appreciate any love and support.
Check in and acknowledge them. Acknowledge that they're doing a good job because we're all just trying to do the best we can as parents. All right, with that, saying goodbye from the best dad ever. We'll talk to you guys in the next
Bye.
episode. Bye.
Bye.